Some stories are buried, others are erased. Each tale you hear is either true or spun from fiction. It's up to you to decide. Subscribe if you haven't. Dim the lights. Let's begin. The Blue UAP Lost Paradise. Intro. The night the Blue arrived, they weren't abducted. They were shown 1. In the Colorado highlands, where the air thinned and the stars burned clean, Nora and Jack took their vacations in the mountains. They liked the trees, the animals, and the silence. They were in their 40s, married for most of it. They had fallen into the slow kind of love that doesn't ask many questions, and relied on shared history, one that was too long to start over. She wrote children's books about talking animals, with socks on their ears. He worked in taxidermy and skeletal reconstruction for natural history museums, bringing dodos and Tasmanian tigers back to life, one taut stitch or drop of hot glue at a time. He made them from beaver fur, wrapped around sculpted foam, or sometimes fiberglass if the client could afford it. Eyes were glass, hand-glazed, and if you caught the light just right, there was a gleam, a hint of life, enough to fool a child, enough to fool himself. 2. It was August 1972 when it happened. The spring and bathing pool were deep in a canyon, steaming, mineral-rich and smelling of rotten eggs. They brought a bottle of wine and a transistor radio, stripped off their clothes and let the water cradle them like memory. They had been here a dozen times. They parked half a mile up the trail and hid their wallets under the seat. Car break-ins weren't common, but it happened. They hiked in with flashlights that bucked with each stride, throwing lurching shadows ahead of them. They weren't afraid, but the flashlights appeared to be. The canyon walls crowded close, brambles scratched, the night chirped. There wasn't much to do in the 70s. A married couple could go watch a movie. Snoopy, Come Home, or Blackula were playing. Have dinner, or stare at TV shows like All in the Family, or Sanford and Son. But the Springs was something else. Silent, dark, shared, a secret. The stars, the heat, their bodies loosening. After an hour, but before Jack opened the wine without warning, the hum began. Subtle at first, a tuning fork in the spine, then rising. It wasn't noticeable at first, not over the splashes of water, or the tinny radio, or them dunking under and coming up laughing. Then more distinct, as if someone were vacuuming the canyon with a hoover. They looked around. Nothing. Then the world turned bright blue, overwhelming, encompassing, stop your mind blue. If God or the end of the world were blue, this was that. Time's up. The radio died. They didn't notice. And the light opened. More. It didn't come from a single source. It wasn't a beam, it was just on, inside them. If you've ever put a flashlight in your mouth and watched your cheeks glow in the mirror, if you've seen that strange light in your own eyes rising from the back of the skull, not reflected, but radiated, it was like that. But not one flashlight. A million. They were trapped in the water like frogs pinned to the mat for dissection. Still breathing, but a second pair of eyes had opened somewhere in their heads, and they were watching something else now. Something not made for them. It showed them, not a story, not a vision, a memory ancient and real, clearer than a near-death experience life review, plains of grass, untrammeled by humans, great forests, tended like gardens, Giant lilies, ferns taller than men curling into fractal spirals. Grass so thin and sharp it could cut you. Air so pure your lungs sang. Rivers so clear you could count every pebble on the bottom. And blue everywhere. Deep sky, light mist. And something beneath it all, something that pulsed. And moving through the grass, something upright. Human, but not. Long-limbed, high-browed, peaceful. Quiet, careful minders. The knowledge of these humans before humans was transferred. Their gentleness, their grace. Not dominant, not greedy, not cruel. They didn't build pyramids. They didn't smelt ore. They didn't shatter mountains. They simply were. The final long branch on a forgotten evolutionary tree. Earth had made many mistakes, but with the minders finally it had gotten it right. They were not our ancestors, just a limb from the tree on which we all swing, until something went wrong. Just one mutation, a spike of aggression, a lust for novelty, for fire, for beauty. The human fork branching like smoke off the tender's back. 3. The mutation showed up first. In a boy, just a bit of extra fire, a spark in his eye, a penchant for cruelty. Or maybe not cruelty, more like indifference. It drove him to mate as much as he could, whenever he could, with whomever he could catch. And the mutation spread, one generation to the next. In the end, we did not kill the minders out of hunger. We killed them because they would not kill us, and also because we could. The blue light showed everything in exquisite detail. Insects hovering in the sky, as clear as if they were under microscopes, pupils dilating in fear. The light showed the killing, slow at first, then faster. The purges, the hunts, the last few hiding in caves. And finally, silence. The tenders were gone. The stewards of earth had been erased. Their bones rotted into dirt. No record remained. No justice was brought. We learned to hunt together. We learned to share meat and cover. And time. We learned that collective selfishness could mimic care. And we built the world on top of their bones. No vengeance. 4. Until now. Jack surfaced from the water, coughing like a hand grenade. Nora was still. Her lips pale. Her pupils tiny pinholes. He shook her. She blinked once, then again, as if trying to adjust to a new world. A world without light. The radio came back on, slowly spinning up, like a stroke victim reversing in time, crackling some warbled tune from a station in New Mexico. The flashlight stayed dead. Steam rose in waves, even if they couldn't see it. The stars above hadn't moved, but everything beneath them had. They didn't speak of it that night or the next. Jack made breakfast, Nora didn't eat. Jack suggested a hike, Nora stayed in bed. Maybe they were afraid to go out, maybe his suggestions were bravado. But something had taken root in her. 5. Every night they saw them. The gardens, the caves, the last moments, rocks thrown, the murders of countless minders, beads of sweat turning to beads of blood. Sometimes it was Jack holding the spear. Sometimes it was her. They began avoiding the bed, avoiding sleep. Jack brought a lounge chair into the bedroom and started sleeping on it. She slept without pillows or clutched them like shields. They kept the TV on all night. Loud. When the broadcast day ended and static took over, they'd wake, switch it off, then fall back asleep uneasily, right where the dream had left them. They were changed. Jack tried to pull her back, played her favourite records, took her dancing, bought her a silver ring shaped like a fox. But the colour had gone out of her. She no longer wrote books about rabbits in socks. Instead, she stared at her typewriter, unmoving. Her last story, unfinished, was about a girl with two heads, one beautiful and loved, the other smarter, kinder, but ignored. She couldn't complete it. The stories had fled. I tried to write, she whispered, a story about a cat who got lost in the dark. But it kept ending the same way. The cat didn't want to come home. One morning, Jack found her barefoot in the grass before dawn. I think they made a mistake showing us, she said. Jack didn't know who they were, but agreed. It became clear the message wasn't a gift. It was a sentence. There was no salvation offered, no technology shared, just knowledge, the kind that rots you. Still, Jack resisted. Something stubborn and stupid in him refused to fold. If this was punishment, he would not bow. He bought a trampoline and jumped under the stars. He skinny dipped in the community pool, got drunk and yelled at the moon. He mailed letters, called radio stations, tried to tell someone, anyone, about the UAP and what he had seen. But no one wanted it. There wasn't enough probing. That same year, 1973, two men in Pascagoula claimed they were taken aboard a ship. Their stories were mocked, then half believed. But his story, their story, couldn't compete. Not the weight of it. It was Nora who gave up first. She faded, like wood greying in sunlight. Jack caught her once, fingers tracing the grain of the table, as if trying to find the tree inside. And then, one morning, she didn't wake up. The gun was warm, the window open. Jack stopped eating, quit his job, said he couldn't touch dead things anymore, couldn't pretend to bring them back to life. Some nights he even drove to the canyon to wait for the lights, wanting to face it, but in the coward's way, testing the night first to make sure it wouldn't really come. One night, drunk and alone and near the spring, he shouted to the sky, "You could have picked anyone. You picked us. Why?" The stars didn't blink, but something inside him answered. Not a message, but a wound. A seed that had always been there. 6. He saw the branching again. Evolution doesn't plan. It doesn't dream. It stumbles. The eye, or what we call the eye, independently evolved in nature at least 50 times. Worms, jellies, shellfish, local solutions to local problems. No blueprint, no foresight, just refinement. Evolution isn't a tree, it's a fire. Once it catches, it cannot go back. It took millions of years to reach something tender, something that could see and be capable of care. And in a few generations it was lost. There's no undoing that, no redemption, only memory. Jack understood then. The light wasn't justice, it was a mirror, something that came impossibly far not to help, but to leave the guilt with someone, a handful of people, quietly, randomly, to become tombstones. Jack didn't forgive, not his wife, not the light, but he didn't surrender either. He carved wax animals, planted trees, started rumors, told the story again and again, sometimes as fiction, sometimes as truth. No one believed him. But that wasn't the point. He spoke to carry the wound forward, so that one day someone might feel it, might understand it wasn't a curse, it wasn't a test, it was the truth. And the truth is this: you can lie or sleep, deny, jump, you can turn away, but you will never escape the earth and the murder you've done. That's what gravity is. A tether, a punishment, a pull to remind you you ruined the only place that ever loved you. Was it true or just a well-told lie? Tell us what you believe and why. We know many of you listen late at night, sometimes while drifting off to sleep. Maybe you're wrapped in polar bear blankets, deep in the Arctic dark. Maybe you're swinging in a jungle hammock, wrapped up like a snack. Or maybe you're alone in a quiet room, or so you think. Let us know where you're listening from, and whether this story kept you awake or gave you good dreams. And one more thing. If you know a rare or hidden place, a ruin, an old legend, a forgotten town, share it in the comments. Your suggestion might become part of the atlas. If you enjoyed wandering these forgotten corners, subscribe and join us again for another journey into the unknown.